Hello, everyone, and welcome to Women Seeking Wholeness. This is episode 133, Authentic Spiritual Partnership. How do you know if you're helping your partner evolve and vice versa? Some of you may have listened to my solo episode, where I talked about what I've learned in marriage after being married 26 years. And this is just kind of like a deeper dive, unplugging from all the social illusions of what a relationship should be, kind of unplugging from that matrix so you can truly, really be together. So this is all about removing intensity, addressing things like internalized misogyny, parts of ourselves that are unhealed inside with toxic masculine and even the toxic feminine. So there's just a lot of things we have to unplug from and deprogram from if we want to show up in the real. Charlie Hartwell and Maureen Pelton are my guests. They are a soul-powered married couple and the creators of ShiftIt Institute. And let me just tell you, they have so much experience in igniting consciousness, human potentiality, creating that new paradigm shift. So Charlie actually is a Harvard Business School graduate, has served and led organizations in 14 different industries, including starting a nonprofit in the slums of Kenya in 1986 that has now served healthcare to several million people. Maureen is an MSSW, a social scientist, a spiritual teacher, and she's got 36 years of professional experience as a holistic psychotherapist, executive coach, organizational consultant, adjunct faculty, and group facilitator. So she's started Insight Timer, if any of you are familiar with that app. Background in like quantum neural reset therapy, and she and Charlie work together as partners in Bridge Builders Collaborative, which is a group of highly successful investors who've been investing in startup companies in the space of mental health and consciousness and spirituality. Maureen and Charlie, thanks for joining us on Women Seeking Wholeness. My first couple. I've never done an episode with a couple before. In fact, I've never done an episode with more than one person, except for my two sisters, where we aired all of our dirty laundry and secrets as a family. But other than that, you guys are the first.
Oh, that's great. Thank you for having us.
What a pleasure.
So I want to dive into just the beauty of the messiness okay, how do I even begin? So when we had talked before, you guys, I think what I was really drawn to was how you guys are able to take people through a process of getting super real around what's happening in here, how they believe about what they believe about sociocultural messages around men and women, and the messiness and beauty of like unpacking that in a partnership. Because it's one thing if you were just trying to do it by yourself, but when you're in a committed partnership, they're always reflecting back to you like pretty much every weakness you have and every belief that you carry, good, battery, whatever. Right. So yeah, I just kind of wanted to talk about, maybe you can share just snippets of your story of how you connected, how I know you have children and you've been together for a while, and how you both came into this awareness of like, this piece isn't working if we don't do this thing differently. And then bridging over into how now you're in the larger space or doing that for others. Loaded question.
Yeah. A lot. I could talk for a long time. I think the simplest way, if it's okay that I start, is, so we are a blended family. We were both, married and divorced before. So, in my first marriage, it wasn't bad. It wasn't a bad marriage. I just knew I couldn't grow anymore in it. And there were a lot of limitations, and my ex-husband and I got along just fine. It just wasn't serving me. And we have a daughter. That's not what I wanted her to see and be modeled. Right. As a social scientist, I know that so much is what's modeled to us. So I wanted her to have a different modeling. So my divorce was quite amicable and good. And I just continue to do my own work. I've been doing my own work since I was 21, and I continue to just do my own internal work, my own deep work around the programming I receive from my church and family system, work I receive from programming within my culture and being a woman. And I just kept diving deeper and doing more and more of my work and kept growing and changing and evolving. And I was single for a number of years, a single mom for a number of years. And I didn't know if I ever really wanted another partner. I was pretty happy. And I met Charlie through our kids. Our kids, my daughter is in between his son and daughter, and they were in Montessori school together. And so that's how we met. And then it was a little bit messy, but we had a strong connection. Like, we knew each other from,
another place and time.
Exactly.
Or multiple places and time.
Depending on your place around that. Yeah. Totally. That people, souls are destined to meet, and how that arranges, like, your higher consciousness mates, and you go like, oh, let's get your bodies to kind of catch up and meet each other. Right.
Exactly. And we were friends first. We'd been friends for a couple of years. It was a community of families, because it was a small private school, and we were friends, and the kids loved each other, which was great. And I don't know how else to say this, but it wasn't like I was searching for a partner or anything. It was just grace and ease and synchronicity. But of course it was messy, because things are always messy. So I can let Charlie tell that part.
The messy part. Yeah. Which is how I started this conversation. It's like, let's dive into the mess.
Correct. So Maureen is not only 26 days older than I am.
Oh no, you robbed the cradle.
But she also, has her journey in this consciousness space is a lot longer than mine. Mine began about 18 years ago, and as part of that, my own sort of personal awakening, one of the things that I realized is that, a marriage which looked like the best marriage in the community where I lived in Minnesota actually had been dead for a long time. And, that, like, I couldn't admit that. And, but in doing my own personal work, I came, to understand that. And then I met Maureen, and, it was such a different type of partnership where there was actual equality, where we actually were, co-creating a household for our kids, where we were in dialogue about, about anything, just about anything, whether it was business, money, kids, and that process of coming together in the community that I came from was very challenging because, in that system, you need a scapegoat and you need a villain, and that all played out. And Maureen, unfortunately, was treated very poorly, by the community, including my family. Not my kids. My kids, had loved her, before we ever got together. But it was
tough. Yeah, it's tough.
And I just want to add, I've done so much of my work. By the time I came into Charlie's life, and he had started his work and was in therapy and was making a lot of changes, even around his role in his family system and even around the patriarchal system he was raised in. So part of the challenge was, I stepped into his life, and I'm a strong, powerful woman who's dealt with her own internalized misogyny, who's not participating in the patriarchal system.
Yeah, and I totally want to talk about that, because people don't. It's hard. It's a little more okay. It's becoming more and more talked about.
Right.
But when you're talking about, how long ago was that you were climbing it?
15 years ago or more.
Yeah, I think it was more.
Yeah.
You really started. So it's becoming more and more discussed now, but it's still, I feel like can be so subtle that we're kind of complicit in our own subordination or our own, relationship saboteur, finer things that we do that way. So I didn't mean to interrupt your story, only to say that I really want to explore that piece for the man and the woman, right? Because it isn't until, as you guys know and talk about a lot, like it isn't until you address that you can actually be in a true spiritual partnership. It's impossible. Right. It's impossible. So.
Right. And so what I was saying was, just him choosing me, and I didn't really know this at the time, but we found out quickly, but even him choosing me as who I am just was not going to go well with his family system or the privileged white community he was in. There was just no way it was going to go well, because I wasn't going to be the type of women that are in his family system or like his ex-wife or the women in the community. And, a really good example I can share is when Charlie came to me, and I knew him, but I didn't know a lot about him or his ex-wife or their marriage or anything, but I knew him pretty well because we'd been friends in this community. And he came to me and he said, I would really like to be with you. And I said, yeah, on two conditions. One, you do not walk on eggshells around me. And two, you do not caretake me. And what I mean by that is, that codependency of trying to manage, right? Because that's what they do in that family system and community. And he looked at me, he's like, okay, I won't. And I'm like, you have no idea what I just said. I think you better talk to your therapist.
You're like, no problem. Like, yeah. But that programming runs so deep, right, Charlie? Like, it's just like,
well, it's
didn't even have the awareness probably at that time, but she was really, yeah.
I mean, I could get it to a certain level. But then, I said I won't do that. And it probably was, within a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And, it's so ingrained. I still find myself in those patterns every once in a while. And then she just kind of gently gives me what we call the paw. And then I'm like, holy shit, I'm doing it again. So it's, it's deeply ingrained, and it's been ingrained for generations. It's not just what I learned. It's like what everyone else learned before me.
Totally.
And what he said, so I said, you need to go to your therapist. So he did. He came back. He's like, oh, okay, kind of get it. And I said, so here's what's going to happen. Like, when you do it, I'm going to call you out on it, with love and playfully, but I'm going to, and he's like, great, but that's what happened. He would do it, and I'd like,
So give us an example of like, whatever you're comfortable with, but for the listeners of just saying, okay, what would be an example of maybe like, internalized misogyny or, old programming or old patterning or old language around what that is?
Well, just simply, it was, he just kind of would walk on eggshells around me because he was a little afraid I might get mad or I might punish him because that's what his mom and ex-wife did, or that he just didn't quite want to say it because he didn't know how I would respond to it. And, so he'd start to talk, and Minnesotans do this, by the way. I'm not from Minnesota. They talk in circles, but he would start to talk, and you could tell he wanted to say something, but he wasn't saying it. And I would just look at him and I'm like, I can't even track with you. What are you trying to say?
Oh my gosh, my husband and I do this a lot, or we used to. I totally am with you on this one.
And then he would go, oh, yeah, that's right, this. I'm like, okay, good. I'm not going to I wouldn't say this out loud, but I'm like, I'm not going to punish you for saying that. And a really good example, like a simple one would be, he'd say, I kind of want to go out to dinner tonight. I'm like, okay, that works for me. And then he would say, what do you want? And I'm like, no. You're the one that wants to go out to dinner. What do you want?
But some people would say that's like the opposite of misogyny, right?
No, that's it. No. Yeah, I hear you.
So I know. I'm playing devil's advocate. So let's parse that out just a little bit more.
Right. So he is trying to please me. He is trying to, like, I'm the I don't know, prize or the woman you have to take care of.
Not quite the trophy wife, but almost like a version of that.
Exactly.
Just keep her happy and fed and give her what she wants. And then she'll just be so nice to you. Yeah.
Right. And I wasn't interested in that. So I'm like, well, what do you want for dinner? You decide. And if I didn't agree with it, I would say so. I'd say, no, that doesn't sound good. But it was always, it's that place of where the misogyny is that place of, it's always our fault, right? Mm-hmm. So it's always the woman's fault. It's always on the woman instead of them just taking responsibility for it. Mm-hmm. It's very, very subtle, very subtle.
So I just want to, go ahead, Charlie.
So the quickest way to get punished in my family were 2 words.
Oh, yeah.
And they're, I need. If you say those words, so nobody's allowed to have needs. You're always trying to figure out what everybody else needs. And so, there's an ingrained pattern of I can't say what I need because you'll punish me. So let me see if I can figure out what you need. And then I'll see if I can, it's
like a chase game. It's almost too passive aggressive too, because you start to get resentful and you're not really speaking into what's really happening and the other person's in the dark
Exactly. And it's just, it's so convoluted. It's hard for me to even track with it. Right. Because I can't, what are you really saying? What is it that you really need?
Yeah. And don't you think a lot of that comes from just getting out of the head and into the heart space?
Yeah.
And there hasn't been a lot of safety for men to do that. Let's be honest.
Right.
I mean, I have 3 sons and 3 brothers and a dad and a husband, and they're all very close to me. And it's just, I can see if, coming from this space of how difficult it would be to identify what you really need and want on both the masculine and feminine end inside each person.
Yeah. Because
of the gray areas of these roles that we've been programmed to play. And
exactly.
So that walking on eggshells energy is the worst in a relationship.
And I would say, in my 35 years experience as a social scientist and psychotherapist, what I saw consistently, and this is misogyny, this is the patriarchal system. What I saw consistently is women are entrained we're supposed to help the tribe to survive. So we're supposed to know what everyone needs. So we think we know what everyone needs. Mm-hmm. And then the men, they just go do what they want, right? So I've seen so many couples where the husband, and I've worked with her, the husband's like, I want to do whatever she wants. I just want her to be happy. I just need to know. If she could just tell me, if she could just make a list. And the woman would look and go, he should know.
Right. Which is nuts.
No,
you have to be specific how it makes you feel, which is always a bonus. Right, Charlie? So if she knows how it would make you feel in her feminine self, in her body, then you would do that. Right?
Well, do my best. Yeah.
Do your best. Well, you may not be able. Okay. Yeah. And you get to choose into that. Right.
Yeah, correct. But it's much, we joke every once in a while because I'm just I'm still like that a little bit. Just give me a list, just write it down and then I'll do what I do, which is I get stuff done. No.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that communication piece of being able to really say what you need. But with so many women, I ask them, well, what is it you need? And it's like deer in a headlight, because no one's ever asked me that. I'm always worried about everyone else.
Well, yeah, I want to go back to what you're saying about, because Charlie, you said you were raised in a very patriarchal type of religion. And we've talked about this before when we were talking, I don't know how many weeks ago we all talked, but I want to talk about how that religious programming can kind of feed into more of the checklisted way of spirituality, or just tell me what to do and I'll do it, because then almost like a value exchange between, if I do this thing, then I'll get this result. So we do the thing and we don't get this result. And I'm talking from a spiritual standpoint, let's just say. But in my religion of origin, Mormonism, it became like, and there's literally a term for it now, like checklisted Mormon. Because the idea is in this patriarchal system that if you check all the boxes and do all the things, then you'll become this whatever that doesn't exist. So yeah. I know that you have quite a history around that and how you were raised. And I don't remember your religion of origin that you had mentioned to me before, but it was very similar.
Yeah. I was raised, I wasn't really raised in religion, but in the system, you know, in the community I grew up in, I had no way of sort of expressing my love for something greater than myself. And I found, you know, in fourth grade, I found the evangelical, you know, I was born again in fourth grade. I was carrying Bibles around the school in seventh grade.
Wow.
I suppose I was like a lot like Mormon. I actually converted one person in my life, which is a great box checker when I was like in ninth grade.
Oh.
But I went to the farthest right end of religion that I could find because it was the only way in the system that I grew up in of being able to express my love for what I later realized was not a white God with a beard sitting in a throne, and, you know, led on earth by white men, basically, you know, telling other people what to believe or they'd go to hell. And
that's a good way to sum it up. I would say with the vast majority of most religions in America. Yeah.
Correct. But the thing that was the thing for me that didn't compute, and it didn't really, you know, I wasn't like this, even though I acted like it. Like, I'm collaborative, which I've learned is a much more feminine trait. So I grew up with a bunch of people who ran large businesses, and it was a command and control model. And it was one person dictating, and this is the way churches, most religions are, you know, one person at the top telling everybody what to do. And they, by the way, they can, in that system, it's like, you know, 1 year it's okay to dance and next year you're going to hell from it. And then, you know, yeah. I mean, all these crazy.
Yeah. Which is supposed to be like these leaders talking about the mind and will of God that seems to shift based on policies that need to be enacted or fear-based, ideologies that can get perpetuated because they might be losing a little bit socially, social, culturally. That's been my experience.
Correct.
Is watching things flip-flop based on trends or bleeding out of memberships or controversy. But when you conflate that with God said this, right? God told me this, but then, like you said, like a year later, it's, oh, God meant this.
Yeah, correct.
And that can really mess with you psychologically if you're trying to be this checklisted, oh, wait a second. Oh, okay. So if I don't do this thing, and all they have to say in their explanation is it's God's will.
So God's will.
And that ends all the discussion.
And if you don't abide by God's will, then there is this thing that happens after death, right? And for the eternity, you're going to be in flames. So you know, that's that system. And naturally, and this is where in my family system, I'm such an outlier. It's like I'm actually a collaborator. I don't want to be in command or control. I thrive in helping to co-create global movements through collaborating with other people and unleashing and unlocking what they're good at to help create something. So that's a very feminine trait. And my family doesn't, you know, they don't understand it at all. In fact, they say I'm not collaborative, and they say I'm not collaborative because I don't do what the patriarch tells me to do.
Yeah, it's so powerful when you become aware of how, you know, and I hate to use this word, sheep, puppets, groupthink, I mean, because it's not a judgment. I mean, I've been there. I understand like you have this heart for wanting to do the right thing and you love the people you're with. And ultimately you start to have some new awareness and then you look around and go, why isn't this a problem for everybody else? Mm-hmm. Why does this not land in me the correct way? Or how come it doesn't resonate for me? And so you went through this evangelical, on steroids type of thing. And then at what point did you recognize, oh, maybe this isn't bringing me, because you mentioned the word love, that your overarching goal, or, the whole reason that you were attached to this religion in the first place was so you could access, what did you say? Like greater love, or I can't remember how you phrased it.
It was just my way of expressing
okay, got it.
Something greater than myself.
Mm-hmm. And so when did you realize that maybe that wasn't going to bring you to that, ultimately to that?
So I went through various stages. I'd say it got to a point in high school where I sort of said, my gosh, I'm really not fitting in because I'm way out there. And if I'm going to go to, a good college, and if I'm going to, I need to sort of fit back into the system. So I sort of toned down, went to a different church. And then over, in my own process of waking up at age 40, I would say I really began to question what is, who is God the Mother, or who is the Great Mother? Mm-hmm. And, what is the connection that we have to the earth as opposed to, and what is love? And, what I found is that for me, there was no human-based container that could contain that somebody's created, that it's put into a religion that holds all that. And so, so I remember, I wrote a song called "Religion," which is that was my giving up of religion, and just gently saying, goodbye, and this doesn't work for me anymore, in my own way. And
so it was ultimately sort of wanting to discover who mother is for you, and that it was more expansive than, because I'm just going to say, like, a lot of people that when they start learning about the divine feminine, that's sort of an entryway into more expansion. And so their old constructs start to feel super confining because she is so vast, or her, I don't know the right word, not philosophies, her wisdom teachings. It's so inclusive, so collaborative, all those things you're saying. It's like, let's all come to the table. Why does there need to be this separation? And that's why it's so expansive, because there's no separation in it. So I was just going to say, like, that pining for the divine mother, the great mother, the ancient, feminine, is often an entry point into someone deciding whether or not religion is really going to serve them, at least in the way that it is structured now.
Yeah, absolutely. And, if I've had any quote that I've ever made, that I think was original at all, it's like, religion, and you mentioned this earlier, religion is just all about market share. And even if it's all about market share, like the fact that nobody's figured out that you could get more people into your church or your temple or whatever by like including the mother is remarkable.
I know, it's a paradox, right? Like they don't really get. So what about you, Maureen? What's been your path with sort of, hey, maybe individuating from greater systems and finding your own like sweet spot around spirituality?
Well, it's interesting. I've always had a sweet spot around spirituality, because from a very, very young age, I felt and maintained the connection to something greater than me, than, the divine. And I always experienced it and felt it. And I mean, I can remember back to 5, feeling it. And so I practiced my spirituality through Catholicism, because that's what my family was. And I was deeply religious Catholic. And it was the only way I had available to me. But when I turned 18 and went to college, I started to really look around. And I left the church, the Catholic Church, and started, and I'd been involved in the church. So I really left the church and I started going to other churches and services and talking to other people who had different religions. And then I started studying religions a little bit. And I was, I just got to this point where I realized that religion was too small for me. Like it wasn't big enough for me. And then when I was 21, I had a spontaneous mystical experience that changed my life forever. And the experience that I had was with what I refer to as the Great Mother in its unconditional love. It doesn't really have a gender, but it revealed itself as the Great Mother because we're so masculine based, right? But just this unconditional love, and it really changed my life to move from, thought-based knowledge that's been programmed into me and conditioned into me and entrained into me into experience-based awareness, which is where I think you really feel light. You really feel the divine feminine. You really feel and experience, nature. Stand in nature and take some deep breaths and feel the wind and the earth under your feet. Feel it in your body, sense it. You're going to feel God. You're going to feel something greater than us. And it's nurturing and it's unfolding and it's emerging and it's allowing and it's collaborative, which are all the feminine, I quote, characteristics.
Totally.
Right. So I left religion altogether and just pursued wisdom teachings and experiences and there isn't, Charlie said it well, there's nothing that can contain what is in us and around us and available to us at all times. We don't need another person or a book or a structure to get there.
Right.
That's freedom. That's freedom.
The freedom, I think, in many of my conversations with, forward-thinking leaders like yourselves, those you're into more thinking globally now, right? You're not just about like, how do I pay my rent or whatever? Like you're way past that. It becomes more about freedom as a core value because you've experienced it, you've tasted it, you get it, and now it's like, how do we help co-facilitate or co-create or guide, maybe is a better word, others into their own emancipation. So there isn't these dependencies on, and we were, talking before about how, and maybe this is a good time, Maureen, for us to kind of dive into that piece about, women sort of stepping up into financial independence and how that will change the structures as more and more women awaken to using resources for social impact.
Right. And for me, it's really about being of service, but using our finances, which to me is, money's energy, right?
Yeah.
So women have to learn. I think a lot of women have been entrained and so have emotional issues around money. I mean, we all have issues around money, but how do we step into the abundance model and out of the scarcity model, which is, again, part of the patriarchy and the religion? How do we step into the abundance model? How do we become comfortable with money and our value and allowing money to be, which is energy, to be a part of recognizing our value? And then how do we manage that money in a way that allows us to build sustainable way of living and investing and having an impact? And even in partnership, because Charlie and I are in partnership around everything, including our money, we work together around our generating our income, managing our wealth, and investing in our social impact. And the piece around, and this is where Charlie is so incredibly good, the piece around this isn't about control and dominance. It's really about emerging, unfolding, allowing, surrendering, faith. I'm not, so much is like, I'm going to will this to happen in the patriarchal system.
Or I'm going to light myself on fire, kill it, achieve, progress, set massive goals, all that, toxic masculine way of creating.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, not all of it's toxic, but you know what I mean? There's been such a heavy emphasis on goals and achievements and recognition. And Charlie, you're sort of this anomaly of a guy who's like, hey, let things emerge, let things unfold, let's allow this, right? And that's, hats off to you for it sounds like even as a child, you had that mentality, and you've been able to be in a partnership now that lets you be you more and then play in that space more.
Yeah, but I really have to credit Maureen, once again. I just, I describe her as the wisdom of our family. So I've learned so much from her about this. It is natural for me. And I mean, I was not trained this way, but it's natural for me. And when she began to teach me about the intention setting versus goal setting, and then allowing that to unfold. And, once I began to do that, you begin to see the magic that is created, it's actually gotten to a point several times where I've imagined something, I've had a goal, and then it's like the thing happens. It's so against my goal because it was with my intention, and it was better than I could have ever imagined. If I said, I want this to happen, then I couldn't imagine what the universe could create with the intention. I just thought I was so limited in my thinking, and Marie's really helped me in how to learn how to set intentions, and then how to allow for them to happen, and to pay attention to the signs, because that, of how it's happening. And then, our lives are just so blessed because it's just incredible what shows up when you're when you do that.
Yeah, and I think this is an important thing I want to comment on to listeners, because it's something I'm very passionate about. I've witnessed this so many times. When we set a really clear intention, not a goal, not an outcome, just an intention, and we just hold that intention and we pay attention to what shows up, what can unfold is beyond anything our little brain could ever imagine. Mm. But when we have a goal or an outcome, that is what our little brain is imagining. Yeah. And we can't allow for the greater, the divine to intervene, because we're so attached to that. Mm. That's the one, when we talk about freedom, I feel like that's one of the most liberating things, is to move from goals to just really clear intentions, surrendering to what might unfold, which is, you can use the word magic, you can use the word divinity or synchronicity or synergy, but it blows my mind sometimes.
Yeah, I know. I think staying in openness to receive.
Yeah.
And that is a very feminine, right? So the masculine is
yeah.
8 is, whatever. And sometimes you do literally energetically have to stop and smell the roses. Mm-hmm. And that makes living into this a lot more powerful, because, if you think of it, it would life is church. Mm-hmm. Your body is the temple. There's so many metaphors and things we could talk about around this. What I would love for you guys to kind of, and maybe we can kind of wrap with this, because I feel like we've had some cool delineation around okay, we all are carrying this internalized misogyny. We all have to unpack the patriarchal patterning and programming. It's an ongoing process. The indoctrination runs deep, even if you weren't raised in a religion, it's all over. But how would you categorize a true spiritual partnership from maybe a long-term commitment relationship or marriage? What's the difference for you? What's that magic, if you will, of a true spiritual partnership?
Do you want to answer that? I'll go next.
So I, when I think about it in the context that we have, that Maureen and I have, first of all, it's not like we're partners in this or that. We are just partners. We're here on this planet, using both of our energies and gifts in with a shared intention to create paradigm shifts on the planet together. And that gets manifested in how we parent. It gets manifested in how we, how we're in business together. It gets manifested in, how we manage our money, or, what house are we in? It just is. And then all of the base of that is this, what's the, where neither of us could do this without the other. Like, we are such a complement to each other. Gifts and skills. I mean, we could each do stuff without each other, but the difference that we want to create on the planet and how we live our lives, it would be hard. We can't do it without one another. We so complement each other. That's how I describe it.
Awesome.
And I think I'm going to be a little more literal. Like, the image I have, and this is what I work with a lot, is the Vesica Pisces. It's sacred geometry, where you have two complete holes and they just overlap. So you still have the two complete whole circles, but then in the middle, there's this overlap. Yeah. And in that overlap, where two or more are, this is where the divine comes through. So Charlie and I meet in that space. We still are our own individuals, but we are meeting in that shared space of blending and allowing for something greater than us to come through. And we're very playful, extremely playful.
That's so important. I think we just get so serious with all the heaviness around spirituality, and it's like, no, it's light. It should be free and light. Yeah.
But even in our own stuff, like, we're so playful around it, and like, doing that again, and it's just play, and we laugh a lot, and you just don't take ourselves serious. But we do apologize and make amends if need be. But there isn't that really intense struggle we don't fight, we just play and laugh, and there's just a tremendous amount of joy, and that's not to mean there isn't challenges, but we're so fun about them. And when we got married, the rabbi said,
I was just going to say that.
The rabbi said to us,
wait, you had a Jewish wedding?
We did. We're not Jewish, but we had a
That's awesome.
He was amazing. But he said to us, he said, and he said this to our kids too. He's like, to keep your marriage healthy, you need to startle each other every day. And I said, we have no problem with that. So every day we do our best to startle each other and just laugh, and even the kids are in on it. And I think that's so much of what I think we're here in relationship. We go places where we can't go alone, but we're choosing to do it with joy and fun.
I absolutely love that. Jeff and I are really learning that. 26 years married now, and 5 kids, and all the ups and downs that come with that, and almost divorcing at one point, separated 10 months, coming back together. Really, to be honest with you, we now look back at, it was the internalized misogyny. It was the patriarchal programming that was creating divisiveness in us, and very unintentionally, with not malintent, just that old way. And it was really creating a rift between us. So we had to decide, are we together because we want to be this righteous couple, and we want to have this posterity, and, we want to sacrifice and all of these things, which is noble? Or are we together because we genuinely do not want to be with anyone else? We love each other, irrespective of us having children. We've really, really had to get to that center before we decided to be all in and say yes again. So it's been powerful to unpack that. And to say, all right, well, wow, we did not realize how much these old dogmatic ideologies were ruining, in some respects, ruining how real we could be with each other and how free.
Right.
And yeah, so it was all about just slowing down and really getting clear around that, and you know, challenging our egos and all those fun things, you know, that you just don't want to do. But
I have to say, you know, like, I'm so impressed, and congratulations, because it takes two. Like, if you know, if one of you wanted to do that, it probably wouldn't work. It takes both. And that's pretty impressive that you, after 26 years, both are on that page.
Agreed.
Yeah, it was hard fought, and thank you for honoring that. But now we're moving into the lightness, the joy.
Yeah.
That in the name of, let's just say, being obedient and righteous. Oh my gosh. And listeners, please do not take this the wrong way. The obedience should be first to feeling that unconditional love that you referenced of the Great Mother. Somehow that got lost in the mix of us doing all these checklisted things. And so it became just this invitation for each one of us to claim that. And so, yeah, it's a work in progress, but we're now discovering, like, it doesn't have to be so serious. And like, you know, we don't have to sit and analyze everything. It's like, what did you mean by that? And whatever, you know, you can laugh at yourself. We got to the point in our marriage where I'd be like, he'd be like, Shree, and I'd be like, what? Like, you know, it's just like, I'm just calling your name. Like, there's no, and we were so in this space of just defensiveness and not having this open exchange of like being human.
Right.
Because this is one thing that does get perpetuated. You can't honor the humanness of the other because you're in fear that they're going to miss the mark and all these things are going to happen. It's going to create this domino effect. And then you're going to have an addict in the gutter addicted to whatever, right? That's the chain of events that you could ultimately go down in that system of fear and control.
Right.
And so honoring that freedom for us became like everything. And we're actually, I would say, more connected to God the Mother, God the Father, however, you know, Jesus, however, all those things, angels, guides. It's just, it's more you mentioned this, Maureen, that there's lived experience, or how did you put it?
Body-based awareness.
Yeah, body-based awareness versus the rhetoric and the narratives and the trainings and the things. Like, no, ultimately, like, you leave those spaces and you have to be you. And then when you're married or in a committed partnership, you're both like bouncing that lived experience off one another. And ultimately it does come back to this prayer position. Those people on audio are not seeing what I'm doing, but I'm like 2 hands, and then eventually you merge, but you still have and retain your own sovereignty. So for me, that's how I see spiritual partnership, everything that you guys said. And I would just add, like, for me, it became maintaining sovereignty. And that I'm not going to put my spiritual whatever on him. That's sacred to his path and where he's at, and that ultimately we can still come together and decide what kind of family we want to have. But ultimately, and more importantly, what kind of relationship we want to have to each other, which is more important than even our parenting roles. Do you agree with that?
Yes. Yes, I agree. First, I agree with personal sovereignty. When you have that, then you can come together and honor each other. And that basis is more important than anything. And that will impact parenting, but in a really good way.
Yeah.
Because you're united.
Right. And then you're more inclined to give your children that gift of, like, you go be you be, you know, find out your own path with your own sovereign self, and which connects you more to that unconditional love from source, God, Mother, Father, however we want to put that.
Exactly.
Well, any parting thoughts first, and then also let us know where we can find you online, how we can attach to what you're offering with your yummy global movement, your ShiftIt Institute.
That's the first time I've ever described it. Yeah, we've got a yummy global movement.
It's yummy. That's a very feminine. It's a very body-based awareness statement.
I think, I think the thing I would say at the end is I'm going to just continue off what we were just saying, is that when we do our own personal work and are liberating ourselves from all the conditionings and narratives and all of that, we can show up more fully as ourselves in our partnership. We can allow others to have their own personal sovereignty. But the big one is we can parent from a place of seeing this little gift or gifts we've been given and holding space for them to grow into their personal sovereignty, not our narratives, not what we're projecting onto them, but their unique gifts and connection to the divine. And, I think if we could do that, things would be a lot different in this world.
Yeah. Yes, that's great. So Charlie, where can we find you guys?
Our website is ShiftIt.com. You can find Maureen, and she's a teacher at Insight Timer. So she's got courses there based on body-based awareness.
I love that. I've had that app for like 5 years, I think.
Yeah, it's a great app. And then we're on LinkedIn and
you're on you're at ShiftIt Institute on Instagram. I just looked it up. Yeah.
Correct. So,
perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you for what you're bringing into the space of like raising the greater consciousness. Thank you for modeling awesome spiritual partnership. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of people who are quote unquote happily married, but they don't plunge the depths of being in a true spiritual partnership. So thank you for bringing that to this episode and for what you're doing in the world. I really admire it.
How cool to be your first couples guest.
I know.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Sherry.
Absolutely. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to ask to join our private Facebook group, Women Seeking Wholeness. I've got cool free stuff coming down the pike very soon. This summer has been a time of regrouping for me, and I'm excited to pull more resources forward to help empower women. You can also find me on Instagram, Cherie.Burton. And I guess one of the biggest takeaways from this episode that I gathered is that, we don't have to walk on eggshells. We don't need to create that energy for ourselves either with our partner. We're really just here to make each other conscious and to walk each other home. And so the whole command and control is the old paradigm. It's the old way of doing relationship, both in the masculine and the feminine domain. So now we're moving more into a collaborative, sort of this emerging, unfolding, and allowing each other to be who we are. I just want to leave you this week with a renewed belief in the beauty of your dreams. We shouldn't need to downgrade our dreams just to fit our reality. We each have a destiny, and the people that come in and out of our lives serve a purpose for us in us fulfilling another person's destiny and them helping to fulfill ours. And it's not always as grandiose as we think. It's about coming back to being conscious and to be loving awareness to ourselves and the rest of the world. Have an absolutely glorious week, and we'll talk to you next time on Women Seeking Wholeness.